Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1689A, and today's date is October 14th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Whistleblower Reveals System is Rigged, Central Bank is in the Kill Box. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Lior Gantz. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you to the interview. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com or NewsSentinel.com sites. Scroll up a little bit, look over to the right-hand side. You'll see it on the right, and you can play the interview right on the site. Or go to Steemit. That is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play it right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we understand that the central banks, they will never deviate from their agenda. And their agenda is to never let a country leave their system ever. And we can see this is what's happening out in the UK. I mean, they're not going to fully leave the system, but they don't want to send a message to every other country saying that, listen, you don't need to be part of the EU. You don't have to be part of this. And we can see at this time that this Brexit, well, it looks like they're going to miss the deadline. And it looks like there is no deal whatsoever right now. And Monday's meeting might be canceled. Maybe they've canceled it already. And we can see that the central bankers, they are never going to let this happen. And we've said this many, many times before, because this will send a message to around the world, to all the other countries, that this can be done, and they do not want this message sent out. So we can see that it's completely breaking down. And we need to realize and understand that the central banks, they are very, very desperate at this point. Remember, their system is designed to only last a certain period of time. Now, of course, the central bankers know this. A lot of people don't realize this, and I'm sure the major population doesn't realize that their system will only go to a certain period of time before the debt overtakes everything else and collapses every single country. Now, if they allow this to happen, every country would start collapsing under the debt load. People would lose jobs. People will say, why did this happen? Who is in control of this? And it would all come back to the central banks. This is what they're most worried about. They usually have some type of an event to cover this up, like war. But we can see that this isn't happening. Even through bad times, like when we were going through this recovery, which we allegedly still are. There's really never been a recovery, but we'll just use their terms of a recovery since 2008, 2009. The IMF has been out there, and they've been making projections saying how great it is. And look, we're going to hit a GDP of 4%, 3.9%, and it always comes down after that. And what's very interesting, they've been telling us how great things are, how everything is improving. Now, this was part of their plan, remember, to convince you that the economy was doing well. And then all of a sudden, we entered an event, a war, and you had a sacrifice. Credit froze up because of that, and it was very difficult to get supplies and things like that. But they had an out. So this way, they showed you the economy was doing well, the economy collapsed because of the event war. The problem is they don't have that event war period right now, and they're very, very desperate. So the International Monetary Fund, who's been, very bullish, very optimistic throughout 2008, 9, all the way up to 2016, maybe even 2017. And we know that the IMF and other central banks have come out and said, listen, we're heading towards another Great Depression. Of course, they tried to blame this on Trump. They're still blaming it on Trump and the Patriots, where, because of his policies, his fiscal policies with trade wars and tariffs, it's breaking down the entire global economic scene. Now, we know that this is not true. We know the entire global economic scene has been breaking down for many, many years. They've come out and they have admitted that they might have been too bullish, too over-optimistic going into 2017, 2018, 19, 20. And now they're saying they have to scale back the growth because of the emerging markets, because of what is happening with other countries, what's happening with Brexit. And the problem is they're telling us all of this, and they're the ones who are responsible for all of it. And they're trying to figure out a way out of this. I mean, the ECB right now, and central banks are famous for this. They never admit when there is a bubble. Now the ECB, they're starting to mention the word bubble all over the place. There are risks that bubbles might be building up. There are risks that assets might be mispriced. Market participants might become too lenient when assessing the real value of assets. And they're continually out there saying this for a reason. They're out there trying to project this onto somebody else, away from them. And this is why they're mentioning this right now. They're trying to point the fingers away from the central bank to some other area. And they're doing as much as they possibly can. Actually, the ECB is saying that the financial stability just doesn't concern the banking sector, but also the shadow banking sector, which accounts for 40% of the EU financial system, might be in trouble. Not might be, it is in trouble. The entire system is in trouble. And if you notice, the central bankers, they're out there trying to defend their system now. And soon you're going to start to hear more and more of them coming out saying, well, because of these trade wars, which we've already been hearing, because of the tariffs, because what the U.S. has been doing, because what the Fed has been doing. Now Trump is playing the other game where he's coming in and saying, the Fed shouldn't be raising the rates. Now, what is the central bank going to go up against another central bank? Not really. They're going to defend them. So he's putting them in a tough position because they're trying to blame him and defend the Fed at the same time. And this is very difficult to do. They are stuck. We see that a Fed inspector turned whistleblower and now is revealing that the entire system is rigged. And this person is saying it's rigged for Goldman Sachs and the banking system. So the Goldman whistleblower at the New York Fed, Carmen Segarra, the former bank examiner, is out with a new book based on more than 46 hours of secret recordings. Now, Segarra was a former bank examiner who looked into Goldman Sachs for the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and she claims she got fired in 2012 after making too much noise about Goldman's alleged conflicts. And she describes that the New York Fed as a conflict-ridden with regulators trading on inside information from bankers they're supposed to keep in line. And we know that these insiders have been doing this for a very long time. And this brings us to Q's post. And I want to go all the way back in time to November 11th, 2017. This is post 138. And back then, Q listed all different banks. And these are like the Peru Central Reserve Bank of Peru, the Poland National Bank of Poland, Russia Central Bank of Russia, South Africa, South African Reserve Bank, Sri Lanka Central Bank, Sudan Central Bank, Ukraine, United Arab Emirates, United States, Federal Reserve, Venezuela, Vietnam, Yemen, all the way, a whole list of different banks. And under it, Q says, the Fed and the IRS. Fact, U.S. Federal Reserve is a privately owned company sitting on its very own patch of land, immune to the U.S. laws. Q. Now, the list that Q gave us, this is a list of Rothschild-owned banks. And it's in all these different countries. And basically, Q is telling us that the Fed and the IRS, they cannot be touched. And we know that the Fed has never been audited. It has the most powerful lobby ever. And we see that it's very difficult to touch the central banks, to get an audit done. And I believe from this post, way back, and remember, future proves past, what they're doing now is they're going after the central bank system. They are in the kill box. They understand how corrupt this system is. And this is why Trump has Andrew Jackson hanging in his office. He's the one that campaigned on getting rid of the central bank. Trump has been out there contradicting what the Fed is doing, pointing the finger, doing the same thing he did with North Korea, with Sessions and the rest, confusing the mainstream media, confusing the financial pundits, confusing everyone. What is he talking about? And this is the beginning stages of taking down the central bank system. They are in the kill box right now. And most likely we're going to hear more from Q coming up, because this is just the beginning stages. Because Trump patriots, to end this corruption, to end what has been going on for hundreds of years, you need to take out the deep state players, their source of their income, and it all revolves around the central banking system. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.